Good evening, invisible friends. My name is Rinaldo Aguiar, and my full name is Rinaldo J. Aguiar Marcano. And today is July 10th, 2025. It's about 7 p.m. Central Time, and I'm located at the 26714 Valley Side Drive, Katy, Texas, 77494. First thing I want to say is that I'm recording this video as part of the civic campaign, I would call it, that I'm advancing to help bring Just Data to justice and bring Just Data to the US. So today, I have prepared kind of a follow-up, a small follow-up section to what we talked about yesterday, the 9th, in which we ended the session talking about WebMD, right? And why they targeted me specifically. I mean, they've been targeting me for a long time, but why the transition from stealing classifieds, websites, to getting me in situations where they basically steer me towards the medical field. Okay. And then I talked a little bit yesterday about what I've learned about that industry, working as a slave, basically. So today, I want to talk about a few things. I don't know if they're important. I think they could be important if they turn out to be correct. Some information that I got. So I have some updates that could be important. I want to start with that. And then I'll move on to a Guess Who section composed by multiple individuals, but with a heavy focus on the medical field and what could be liability directly for WebMD, okay, and WebMD's executives and CEO and all those people. Oh, and the chief medical officer. Don't forget that one of Medscape and WebMD. So anyhow, so I'm gonna start with the items that are not the Guess Who section, okay? So the first item, this is just a personal note that I want to give, is that I'm changing the name of the website, and I hate to do this because like I've referred to the name and the domain so many times, and it's impossible to, without help, right, to change that in every single video and in every single place. It would be a titanic task. It would consume several weeks of time, right? So I'm not going to be able to do that, but I purchased another domain name and I'm configuring it with the basic things so it redirects to what is spy held today. But I want to give a little bit of context of why, right? So I've been thinking about this for the last couple of days, actually. Not necessarily only renaming the website, but I guess the thought more generally is that when I name these things, there are certain things that I given names to them, okay? Another good example is when I've talked about before about, I've described in some occasions what I am doing as an open source counterintelligence effort, okay? That's another example of the same idea. And the thought that came to my mind was that maybe using those names may not be a good idea for different reasons. So for example, in the case of open source counterintelligence, I think it's not a good idea because it implies that what these people are doing is intelligence. And I don't think what they're doing is intelligence. There are intelligence services involved, but that doesn't mean that they're doing intelligence. What they're doing is committing crimes. Like these are crimes. And I'm not an expert in the field or anything, right? But from what I understand, intelligence means gathering intelligence, gathering information to advance your country's success or agenda or whatever, right? But what these people are doing is killing people, committing assassinations, committing financial crimes, stealing data, stealing trade secrets, stealing government secrets, stealing military secrets. This is not intelligence. This is a purely criminal enterprise. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that by giving the name to what I'm doing, open source counterintelligence, in a way, I'm validating, or not validating, but I'm like discounting the gravity of what they're doing, right? So I'm not going to call it that anymore. So that's why I renamed the playlist to open source criminology, okay? Which is what I think. I don't think that I'm a criminologist, but this is what I'm doing, analyzing crimes and criminal patterns. So I don't know, it was the closest term I could find. Maybe there's another better term, and if anybody has an idea, please let me know. But for now, I'm going to call it that. I'm going to stop calling it open source intelligence or counterintelligence, because what these people are doing is not intelligence, it's committing crimes. And I understand that if you're running an intelligence program overseas, outside of your country borders, it's probably going to be illegal, because most countries have laws against foreign countries conducting intelligence within their borders. I understand that. But there is a line. There is a line between breaking those specific laws and harming citizens and targeting children and infecting children with viruses to kill them. There's a line. And these people clearly don't know where that line is. So that's one example. And regarding spy hell, I thought about it, and I think that the word hell is very negative. And I have to think about how people will read this in the future, right? And what will be the message that they will be getting? And I don't think like the message of sending people to hell is what I want to convey, right? I would like to think that I'm helping, but I don't think sending people to hell it would be a good message. So I'm going to remove the word hell from the name. So for now, I don't know. I'm still thinking about what to call it. But for now, I thought to call it Spy Busters, like a word play with Ghostbusters. So I don't know. I registered that domain name, thespybusters.com. And right now it is redirecting to the website. So that's that. So I'm changing names of a few things that I think the name could be misleading. Okay, so now I'm going to switch here to a topic that is a bit technical. And this, I'm going to do it to do them a favor and to make whatever comes next smoother for everybody. Today they kind of reduced a little bit the number of cars traveling in pairs. They're still doing it, but they're being more subtle, right? And when I saw that, I thought these people clearly are not. I know they're watching these videos. I know that for a fact. They react within minutes after the video was live, and even before, because they have my house backed, right? So they can listen when I'm recording the video. In fact, I think the Chinese gentleman spy from the house in front of me, like park his spy car in front of the house. They do this thing, right? Like right now, they're listening. So anyhow, what I was going to say is that I wanted to do them a favor and explain to them why it doesn't work. Because I don't know if it's that maybe the technical department of this criminal network has already been decommissioned or something, but it feels, I don't know, 8 months ago, they were more technically proficient. Like they would get things quickly. If I say something, they would adapt quickly to what I said because they understood what I was saying. But with everything I said yesterday, right, I even told them that I'm using their satellites to bounce the signals, and they're still passing the cars in pairs. Like, if they still have technical people working for them, people like Elon Musk or Travis Kalanick, if they were still active, right, they would know that has no effect, because if the signal is coming from the sky, you cannot intercept it as if it was a radial signal. Like, it will just not work, right? So anyhow, I'll explain to them why, in this session, why it doesn't work. Okay, guys, so now I'm talking to the criminals. Okay, criminals. So here's the thing. If the signal is coming from the sky, the only way you can intercept it is by standing next to me. That's the only way, or in front or behind me, like it depends, right? And the main factor is how wide the transmission is, because it's a directional signal, right? So obviously at this point, I know how to concentrate the signal to make it very narrow, right? And how narrow I make it is the factor. For example, if I make it wide, then you could stand, say, 30 meters from me and you can still catch it. But if I make it very narrow, you will have to be literally 1 meter away from me. So it depends on how I calibrate the thing, right? And of course, because I'm trying to protect my data, I calibrated it to be very narrow. So you basically will have to be like literally next to me all the trajectory, okay? Since the moment I leave my house till the moment I arrive to my destination. If you leave me for 1 second, not being next to me, I will make the transmission in that moment. And then you won't be able to get it. Now, I'm going to explain I'm talking to the criminals now. I'm going to explain why I can make the transmission anytime I want. The answer is simple. It's because I turn my network, my system, my communication system into an asynchronous system. So basically, I have different needs than you. You have to have this thing running all the time because you're moving a lot of data. You have this parallel WhatsApp, this parallel email, this parallel Uber. Like you have all these things, right? You have to keep them running. So you have to be running data all the time. That's why if I stand next to your antenna, I get something like every single time because you're always transmitting. But my needs are different. I don't have to transmit much. I only need to transmit, say, 500 bytes, not even a kilobyte, like 200 bytes. That for me, that's enough because what I want to pass is just a few characters. In a nutshell, my system is asynchronous, meaning I can try as I'm driving through the city, right? My system could be trying to transmit, if I need to transmit, for example, say 5 times per minute. And if it doesn't succeed, it doesn't matter. The system can cut off anytime and it has no effect. I can just retry in 2 minutes from now until I manage to get those 200 bytes out, right? And then I succeed. If I need to receive, it's the same. The system can be off until there's nobody around my car. And then I can drive to a point where I know I can receive, given the position of the satellites, right? Long story short, it's not going to work. The thing with the 2 cars in front or the 2 cars behind, like it doesn't work because the signal is actually coming from above, right? You have to be either with a helicopter on top of me all the time or with a car literally parked next to me or traveling exactly next to me in any of the 4 sides of the vehicle during the entire trajectory, right? Because I have the eavesdropping avoidance system. If my cameras see anything, no, the system sniffs the MAC address, it just won't transmit or receive anything. I won't take that risk. And it's not going to work. It's the best way I can describe it. And this is another weakness, and now I'm talking to the free world. And this is another weakness of their system, is that because they needed to make this thing, they're relying on these fixed nodes around the houses. And then antennas, as I believe, are embedded in the roof, right? And they do this, it's a good idea because it's a super wide area. So it's a mega antenna, basically. But the flaw that comes with that is that they designed their system for the, I don't know what would be the technical term for that, the aperture, I don't know, how wide the directional transmission is, they made it very wide. And the reason I think they did that is because, as I said yesterday, it's a bidirectional connection with a handshake, like kind of a TCP/IP variant. So because of that, if they make it very narrow, the satellite will move and then the handshake will be cut off, right? So they need that window of time to be long enough for the handshake to come back. Right? So because of that, they need to make the angle very wide. And that is a flaw because I can park the car 50 feet away and I still get it, right? I can still get the signal, even if I'm very far away from the antenna. It's a terrible design. Anyhow, so I wanted to explain to them that why it's not working. And if you apply the logic, you've been trying to eavesdrop in this way for 7 months, 8 months at this point. I think I developed those informants, the first ones in November. And I'm sure you haven't gotten anything because they wouldn't be talking. So if it hasn't worked in 7 months, it's not going to work at this point. Anyhow, moving on. Before I say that, I want to make the point that I'm talking to the free world, that it's amazing how, understanding these technical concepts gives you freedom. I don't know if viewers or everybody from law enforcement that could be watching this recalls that, I don't know, a few months ago, when I figured that I could do directional transmissions, I started doing them in my backyard at Britton Bridge Drive. And I was basically confined to that mini grid in my, that small grid in my backyard, right? But because I didn't know about bouncing the signals of the satellite. But after I discovered that, it was like discovering fire. Like now I can transmit from any arbitrary place because there will always be a satellite that meets the criteria, right? In the next 2 minutes or 3 minutes, because they have 7,500 satellites orbiting with Earth. So those are a lot of opportunities, right? So I guess what I'm trying to say is that now I have the freedom to communicate from anywhere I want and to receive or send data from any place I want. Even if they have cars 100 feet away from me, it doesn't matter because as long as they're not next to me, I can do it. Receive. To send, I'm free to send because it's directional. Unless I see a plane on the sky, I can chip the data. So anyhow, it's amazing. It's amazing really how things change, right? Okay, so now I want to talk about things that I think bring a lot of liability, okay? So I think to make this make logical sense, I should I had a person in the guess who, but I'm going to move it to this section, okay? So there is a lawyer, and as I mentioned before, lawyers are a big part of this criminal network, unfortunately. I don't mean to generalize, but it seems like they're fundamental, a cornerstone of this organization. So there is a lawyer in New York. His name is L.A. Klein, and he's a partner at a prominent law firm in New York. And this is documented in the website. And he's one of the most connected lawyers, connected to Diosdado Cabello directly. And I believe from data that I have that he was directly involved in the planning of the kidnapping of my son. And I documented this in the website and I reported him to the IRS as well. And I am mentioning this because I think he is a prime example of why this network is doomed to fail. And it's this thing that I mentioned before, that they promote people based on how far they're willing to go, not based on their skills. And this lawyer, I'm saying this in case, so I got some information today that if it's true, I think it would be like checkmate, because it would mean that they self-incriminated themselves, all of them, right? If it's true, I don't know if it's true, but from what I got today from the informant, putting the things together, I think it makes sense. I think it's possible that's what happened. And if that's what happened, they basically signed their own sentence in a way, or it's their own admission of guilt. I don't know. So I'm saying this because if this is the case, this stupidity that is derived from this information came from Ella Klein, who is supposedly like a super lawyer, right? And you can see this, right? Like when they send me to arbitration after declaring me crazy in a document filed with the court. Like it's a stupidity. It's legal stupidity. Even though there are lawyers that charge, I don't know, $10,000 per hour, they don't think about it, right? They seem to apply logic, right? So they are a weak spot. So with that, I'm gonna pass to the next part, which is the information I got today from the informant, okay? So the informant apparently somehow heard or somebody told him what I said. Our exchanges are very short, right? Because I cannot be chatting. As I said, my operational mode is to move 200 bytes, 300 bytes, 500 bytes at the most, right? To make it hard to catch. I don't know. Yesterday, in the session yesterday, right, when I mentioned that he told me that Salvador Mendez and David Molero are the same person. I said it, and I said, I don't know if this is true. To me, it's a bit hard to believe, but this is what I've heard, right? So today, the foreman tells me, and I'm not gonna quote him or anything because it could be dangerous. But basically, he was like, "Look, listen, I'm telling you the truth, and I can prove that I'm telling you the truth." And he gave me an additional piece of information that I didn't have to prove that he knew what he was talking about. And this, it sounds incredible, right? But if this is true, this would put these people at the same level as Hitler, basically. This is the kind of stuff that the Nazis did to the prisoners in the concentration camp. So this is what he told me. He told me that the seven, on orders of Diostato Cabello and WebMD, paid Dr. Vitenas to perform on me a vasectomy without my knowledge. Think about that for a second, right? I'm not going to give you context. And this is what I say. If this is true, it's checkmate. Because think of the implications. I'm gonna talk to the criminals now. I'm gonna walk them through the legal implications of this if this is true. So, and for people that are not familiar with what I'm saying, Dr. Vitenas is a very prominent plastic surgeon here in Houston. Okay. So what happened was a few years back when I turned 40, a lot of my quote unquote friends and other people very close to me started on a campaign of telling me, "You're 40, you're very successful. Why don't you like do a little plastic surgery? Try it. Maybe to refresh your image." And I've never been concerned about my image. I'm always working and writing code. Like I'm not that kind of person, and there's nothing wrong with that. I don't have anything against plastic surgery. In fact, I did it. But what I'm trying to say is that thing never crossed my mind. But and this is the kind of things that they do, right? Because they're coordinated. You hear this thing from 5, 6 different people in different contexts in your life, at the office, at home, when you're playing cards, in different moments, right? They spread like in a month or 2 months, and you start thinking, maybe I need this. Maybe it's not such a bad idea. So many people are telling me, or some of them did things like show me articles. Oh, look at this procedure. It's amazing. Look, the before and after photo, right? So anyhow, they got the idea in my head that way, right? And I went to see Dr. Vitenas, who is a very prominent. In fact, let me jump right to he appears in magazines. He's super prominent. And this is part of what I'm saying, that this is impossible to hide. This is not a person that can disappear, like what they do with the Chinese agents in front. These past few days, they're on a campaign of bringing them outside of the houses so they get photographed. But it's not the real agent. These are like the doubles, right? So they're bringing all the doubles to get photographed by the cameras to then confuse the FBI when they get the footage, right? But disclaimer, these ones, like for example, the one on the 26707 Valleyside Drive that I photographed and I posted the video in the channel, that's not the real agent, the female one. The real agent is a very attractive woman. This one is not the same person. So that's how I know that it's not the same. They look very different. It's not a good double. Yeah, so this is not a person that can disappear, right? That you can replace with a double. This guy appears in magazines, and he has a lot to lose, right? Like and I talked to him in person. I think he was born here. If this is true, he will talk. And but disclaimer, he's an agent, and I already reported him to the IRS, and he's already part of the medical cluster. The part of the new information is that he was paid to perform a vasectomy without my knowledge when he did the procedure that he did on me. That's the only part that's new. But the fact that he's an agent and all that, I've known that for a long time. Because of course, all my medical or healthcare needs have been the providers of my healthcare for the last 18 years have come from eBay directly, right? Like, I cannot see a doctor that is not put there by eBay, not even the immigration doctor when I got the green card, the citizenship. That doctor was also Iranian and also marked in the index. Imagine that, working for immigration. And he gave me a vaccine that sent me to an emergency room. Anyhow, yes, that's the information that they basically went ahead and paid Dr. Vitenas to perform a vasectomy without my knowledge. Now, I have to say, first of all, I've never had a vasectomy in my life, so I don't know if that's something that would be visible or that I would feel that I got a vasectomy. I don't know. And this was before, so this was a lot of years ago. The informant also told me that this is the reason why they were collecting samples, DNA samples at the Great Wolf Lodge. And I'm talking to law enforcement now. Please think about the implications of that. And it makes sense, right? Thinking about it and knowing them, because I've been dealing with them for 18 years, I understand now what happened. So they paid Vitenes to do the vasectomy, and they were, when they were doing the DNA test, what they were looking was for a weapon to create an emotional crisis on my life, right? So I would be depressed and could not fight anymore. But they did not deploy that weapon, which means that they didn't find what they were expecting to find, they could not find at the Great Wolf Lodge. That means that either the vasectomy failed or Dr. Vitenas took the money but did not perform it. Because this is like a war crime. This would be, I think the Nazis did this to the prisoners, like they applied vasectomies and sterilized them so they couldn't reproduce. It's a serious, very serious crime if he did it. But I don't know. What I can tell is that after the operation, I only got 2 incisions and they were on my hips. Okay. One on each side, very small. And I didn't see anything that would indicate that I had a vasectomy. And I imagine that would hurt, right? Like I don't know. Like I'm not familiar with the procedure. I've never even talked about it with anybody, so I have no idea of what would a person that goes through a vasectomy would expect in terms of recovery time and pain level. I don't know. I have no idea. I didn't see anything that would indicate that was the case. But I guess this is a question that authorities should ask Dr. Vitenas. You need to talk to this doctor because this is a very serious crime. Short of murder, I think this is one of the most serious crimes you could commit. Sterilizing a person without their knowledge. It's a very serious crime. But besides all that, there's also other implications of this. This tells me that David Molero was in love. That's why he helped plan the vasectomy. That's why they needed to do the vasectomy, because he was in love. And this also tells me that it's probably true that he is Salvador Mendez. Salvador Mendez is probably a fabrication, right? He doesn't exist, or it's an actor, I don't know. The real person is David Molero. And it is possible that he's married. And if he's married, that would be a crime on the other side, because that would be, I don't know what it's called, bigamy, being married to 2 people at the same time. What is it called? Yes. And they filed a court document saying that there is a second legal marriage at the same time. It's if you think of legal mistakes you could make, I think there's nothing beyond this. It's like filing with the court an admission of guilt, like immediately, right? Like how do you defend against that? And there might be DNA evidence to support that. So I don't know. It feels like it could be checkmate. Yes. But again, I think the way to clear this up is that authorities talk to Dr. Vitenas and ask him if it's true that he got paid to perform a vasectomy. It would be simple. Anyhow, I think that's, and this is what I'm telling you. This LA client, a big shot lawyer from New York, can make these stupid mistakes. It's incredible. And I think it could be true also because what was the need to fabricate the divorce? And Morgan Habner. So she divorced the fictitious identity. So she helped divorce the fictitious person, but maybe the real person is still married. I don't know. What does that say from a legal standpoint about Morgan Habner? I think it's an unsalvageable situation, I think, from a legal perspective. How can they disappear whiteness? It's impossible. Anyhow, so I want to jump to another item, okay? Food contamination. So lately, I've been buying food at Walmart, the Walmart that is on FM 1463 and FM 1093. And I'm doing the thing where I randomize what I buy because I know what they're capable of doing with the food. And unfortunately, all the food stores here are controlled by them. I really have no options. Wherever I go, it's all of the stores are marked in the index. So I've been buying at Walmart, but I've been changing what I buy. Okay. I've noticed and this is the problem, like in my case, right? Like I can't, it seems like I'm not allowed to buy things that I like. If I develop a taste for something, I cannot buy it a second time because it puts me at risk. So what happened this time was with the orange juice. Okay. So I bought, I don't know, like 10 cartons of 2-liter cartons of orange juice at Walmart. Not the last time I went, but the previous time. But every time I go, when I go to the fridge to buy juice, because now that I cannot drink Coca-Cola or Pepsi because they tried to kill me with that before, I'm buying juice. So now every time I go buy juice, there is somebody standing, one employee, arranging the bottles. Because that's what they do. If you're curious how they do it, is by coordination. Like when they know that I'm close to the store, that they can figure out that I'm going to buy food, then with the employees that they have at Walmart, they switch the bottles and they put all the bottles contaminated. And then after I leave, they switch them back. That's basically the technology. It's not like they leave the contaminated food in there. It's just in the moment where I'm in the store. It's something that is targeted. So every time I go, now there is always a person arranging the bottles, right? Because of course, I don't give them enough time to arrange them and leave. So I always catch them in front of the door of the fridge, right? But I made the mistake of thinking that because they are so exposed at this point that they would not try it. But I think they tried it. And I'm going to tell you why I think that way. So I bought 10 cartons of orange juice, 2 liters, and I drank them. Okay. And to be honest, I'm scared that maybe they got me. So I drank them. And then after I drank them, I always clean the containers to see if there's anything in there, right? And there was something in 2 of the containers. And what was in there were these pieces of cotton. And I took them out of the containers and froze them. I have them frozen in a particular place. So these are like pieces of cotton. And I examined them a little bit, and they look like those coffee filters that some of the automatic coffee machines use that are like cotton filters, and inside they have the coffee like trapped in the cotton. They look like something like that. Now, what's curious is that out of the 10 cartons of, I don't know if cartons, right? Well, like the 10 containers of orange juice that I bought, only 2 of them had these pieces of cotton inside, and inside the juice, they have this dark substance inside, and they're like soaked in orange juice. So, whatever was in there, I drank it. I don't know if maybe they got me. I don't know what it is. So far, I don't have any symptoms or anything that I can tell, but it could be microplastics. It could be anything. It could be something that develops 2 months from now. So I don't know. But I saved it, okay? In case something happens to me, they're frozen. Yes, so this was at Walmart. And I'm making the mention of the person standing next to the fridge every time I go, because if the authorities to see this video, please check the cameras. The last time there was a man, he looked Venezuelan. He was taller than me, so he was probably 6'1" or maybe 6'2", around 220 pounds. And he looked like a Venezuelan, he looked like a Venezuelan military or intelligence, like that. He had a military type of body. Like this was a person that worked with his body. But he was dressed as an employee with the mantle, the thing, the badge, the whole thing, the whole 9 yards. He was wearing gloves. So please check the footage if you can. So that's that. Okay. So now I'm gonna jump a little bit to a different topic. Okay. The Guess Who. The Guess Who section. Okay. So for this Guess Who, I have one prominent individual that is not directly tied to WebMD. WebMD is a central part of this network. Of course, this brings liability to WebMD. And I have a collection of other individuals that are are in the medical field and participated directly in bruises and things like that to steal information from key opinion leaders. And that was directly orchestrated by WebMD since 2015, at least. So a lot of liability for those. So for the Guess Who, for prominent person, I want to introduce you to Brendan Carr, who I think was the director, so the chairman of the Federal Communications Commission. He's super flagged in the Elon Musk's Geo Index. In the last session, we talked about the things that this criminal organization provides to the agents to commit crimes, and we talked about anonymity and impunity and the cars and the fake identities. But the other piece is this secret communication network that they have bouncing signals off the satellites. And risking to state the obvious, that is a network that is operating in the United States without a license. It's illegal. It's an illegal communications network. It's a clandestine network. And it should be taken down if the FCC was doing its job. So it's important that they control the head of the FCC, because that's the organization that could take down all the antennas by legal means. So they could just dismantle the network if they were doing their job. So that's why they need to control the head of the FCC always, right? Because this is those military type antennas in all those millions of houses. That's the centerpiece of this criminal network. So he's of course flagged. The Leckline, which we talked about before, also flagged. Okay, Android. So Android, the operative system of the cell phones. There's a person called Arno Weber, and I mentioned him in the previous session in the context of Twitter, but he was also a Google engineer. I didn't work with him while I was working for Google, but I knew who he was. He was a very prominent director at Google when I was an engineer. And he ran the entire Android department at Google for many years. And Android is, at this point, this is operative system that is heavily compromised and it's used as an espionage tool. And it also has a lot of important information or sensitive information, like the biometric data of your face. When you unlock your phone with your face, all the features of your face are captured by Android, and that's how they do the unlocking. And I imagine Arno being an important player in this network, he probably facilitated the network access to Android code or the data, the biometric data. So he's a dangerous agent in that sense. And he's also a French citizen. Also, although this is not a person, it's a pharmaceutical company called KKI. That's the acronym. And the company is actually called Kiowa Green Group. And it's a Japanese pharma company. They're flagged in the index, all of their locations. And also, a lot of prominent people in that pharma company are flagged. And also, they directly participated in ruses with somebody called Bill Cosart to steal information from key opinion leaders. And all this is in my key opinion leaders email. If authorities are watching this video, you can go to my email. I don't care. You don't need my permission, I'm sure. But, no hard feelings if you dig through my emails. And you will find all the emails with KKI, and I even submitted a bid for a contract. Of course, they didn't give it to me. I then offered them the product for free, and they offered them something like $200,000 in free product usage credits, and they still said no. And I remember thinking at the time, what would the shareholders think if they knew that somebody is offering a product to their company for free and offering $200,000 in credit for a year after that? So basically, the company would have saved like more than $1 million because they were buying this product from Definitive Healthcare, right? So they would have stopped using Definitive Healthcare, and they were on in Spanish we call it licitation. I don't know what is the name in English. When a company opens a process to accept bids for a project or for a product that they need to buy, right? So they had Definitive Healthcare, and the contract with Definitive Healthcare was up for expiration. And they opened this bid, and I bid right for it. They said no, and then my response was to offer it for free because I wanted to take the customer away from Definitive Healthcare. Definitive Healthcare is owned by Medscape and WebMD. It's the same people, right? So I basically in my bid, I offered the product for free. And then on top of that, I offered them an additional $200,000 in free credits towards product usage in the second year for the next year. And they still said no. And I remember thinking that if the shareholders, because this is a public company, right? If the shareholders knew that the company could have saved more than $1 million and refused to even try, I don't know. I think that probably goes against the fiduciary duty of the officers of the company, right? Of the directors that made that decision. But anyhow, all these and my exchanges with Bill Cosart regarding this are in my key opinion leaders email. So a good point to talk about Bill Cosart. Bill Cosart is a salesperson that I recruited through a website that it's owned by this network. It's a ruse. And the website is called, I don't recall what it's called, but it's basically a website in which salespeople have like profiles, and they basically take on jobs or contracts, but they don't charge a fee, but charge a commission, a percentage of the sale. It's like, I'll find the name and I'll post it. I can't recall the name of the company. Anyhow, I found Bill Cosart that way, and he said that he wanted to work in this way, like basically as an external sales agency, right? So he has his own company. The arrangement is the salesperson has their own operation, and they control their schedule, how they get their leads, they control everything, right? But if they make a sale, I give them, and I think my arrangement with Bill was like 40%. I would give them 40% of the contract value, but I have zero risk. If they don't make any sale, I don't spend any money. So anyhow, I retained his services that way. And when I interviewed him, he explained that he was a salesman selling hospitals. So he was selling, that's what he told me. I don't know if it's true at this point, but he told me that his job was to sell to medical groups the construction project of an entire hospital. I'm talking about hundreds of millions of dollars, one project, right? So of course, it was very interesting to me because I thought, well, if this is a person that can negotiate contracts of that size, that's exactly the guy I need. So I hired him in that capacity, or retained his services, I should say. But he was an agent, right? Like he was setting up all these demos just to get me to talk about the technology and then give the recordings to WebMD and to Definitive Healthcare. And he never closed $1 in sales, right? And he kept working. Like, if he had been a real sales agent, right, why would he lose his time for 6 months in that way, right? After the first month, if he's seeing that he's not making any sales, he would leave because he's just wasting his time. But he didn't leave, right? Because the real job was gathering intelligence, information, stealing information. So that's Bill Cosart. He operates, so the firm that he operates, which is the firm that I hired, is called MedFirst, and it's based in Massachusetts, near Boston, of course. That's a big operational hub of this network. Also, I want to mention, I talked about WebMD yesterday. I did not mention that, but WebMD these days is owned by a company called KKR, which is Kravis. The second name is very hard for me to pronounce. Yeah, Colbert, Travis, and Robert. So KKR, it's an investment firm, and they own WebMD. And I'm mentioning this because they're flagged. They are the ones paying for all this, right? For all those attacks, all those years, the money came from KKR. And also, interestingly, they hired my cousin in New York. So one of my cousins, blood cousins, they hired her to work for KKR in New York. So I imagine there is liability in that as well. That's the hard the Target's family play. I've seen that many times. Okay, so moving on. There is a person by the name CJ Canaday. It's spelled the last name. So the CJ, I imagine it's an acronym, initials. I don't know. I don't think the name would actually be CJ, but that's what he called himself, CJ. And the last name is Canaday, spelled Cannaday. And he was working supposedly as part of Vital Interaction, and he was involved in the whole saga with Lawson Booth and all that. I also have here Brian Rogers from Intern. This is another one of the bruises where they hired me as a consultant to steal and intercept my connections. And it's the same thing that they always do. Also from that company, there is a person that was called Karine Schloss. It's spelled Karene, the first name, and the last name is Scholz, SCHLOSS. And their emails are brian.rogers@intern.co and karine.schloss@intern.co. Now, I'm going to move on to Medscape. So from Medscape, important people that directly participated in bruises to steal key opinion leaders' data or technology. I have Mohammed Umar Masur from Medscape and Susan Grady. The last name is spelled Grady. I also have here my notes from other companies, somebody with the name Afnan Nasir. And all these are documented in the website, exactly why they're flagged, and all the data is in the website. Also, Chris Godwell, also flagged. And I have somebody from Sanofi called Jiri Zhang. It's spelled YIDI.ZHANG@sanofi.com. And from Blue Lava, this is a prominent one. Jeffrey Friedman from Blue Lava and Leo Francis from Evolution Health Group, which owns Blue Lava. And all these, both Blue Lava and Evolution Health Group are owned by the network. Like it's the same people, right? So they just create these companies and use them to steal information from the competitors, posing as clients or potential clients. So with that, I'm going to conclude today's session. It feels like it's shorter, but I think it's packed with legal liability, particularly with that thing with Dr. Vitenas. And bigamy, it could be a thing. So it feels to me like it was a stupid. I mean, Diosdado Cabello deciding to file for divorce. It feels like that's a lot of ammunition. So I'm gonna end this one here. And again, I thank you for your time, and I'll see you on the next one. Thank you.